Well, that's good.
Who did you go with?
I switched from Bell to ExploreNet for now, but I'm on the list for, oh, what's that other one called? Space something?
Starlink,
Starlink.
the
Starlink?
Elon Musk one.
Yes, but I'm on a wait list, so.
Yeah.
Okay, council, it is 5 o'clock, so we will be starting. Mayor Allen, you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Just realized I had too much light on my back, so I had to shift things. Okay, may I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Ma Chapman and Councillor Cabral, the special meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of April 7, 2021 come to order at 5:02 p.m. All those in favor? It is carried. Due to COVID-19, council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. So therefore, we are meeting electronically, and the meeting will be live streamed. The administration center will be closed to the public. There are announcements that are coming out because of the new legislation today that went into place from the province. Residents are able to watch this meeting live on the township's website at www.springwater.ca. They can listen to the meeting live by telephone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the ID 864-8723-8976 and the pound sign. This option is available during the meeting, and for those who are unable to watch but are interested in seeing it, they can watch the Township YouTube channel, which is linked at the website. The link's provided at the website. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest tonight, council? All right, seeing now none, I now call upon Chris Lockhart of Enterprise Fleet Management to provide council with a fleet management proposal.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. How y'all doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good stuff. Well, I really appreciate your time this evening with everything going on. I know we're virtual over Zoom. I like to have these meetings in person, but nonetheless, I really appreciate your time in listening to me this evening. Just to give you a better understanding of who I am, my name is Chris Lockhart. I'm an account executive for Enterprise Fleet Management. We're a division of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I've been working with Enterprise for just over 7.5, close to 8 years now, working with both private and public sector entities that have anywhere from 20 to 150 trucks in their fleet, and building plans, fleet plans that are aimed to drive down their overall cost and help them achieve financial savings as well as operational benefits. Including on the meeting tonight, I also have my government marketing manager. His name's Camille Kosick. He helps oversee, he can introduce himself, but he oversees 15 or 1,600 of our municipal partnerships with Enterprise Fleet Management all over North America. I just thought he would be a great resource to have on the call this evening to answer any additional questions, especially related to our municipal partnerships that I may not be able to address myself. I thought it'd be great to have him on the call as well.
I appreciate you having us this evening.
Thank you. So you're probably wondering why a car rental company is talking to you tonight. So if you can see my screen, as you know, we are a division of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. You probably have rented a vehicle before in your past, or in some way, shape, or form familiar with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We're a sister company to Enterprise. We are Enterprise Fleet Management. To give you a little bit of background, we're a privately held company. We've been in business for close to 60 years now. 1957 is when we were founded, and we started working through B2B partnerships. We were working with a lot of private sector companies to help them reduce their costs for their fleet of vehicles that they had, privately for their organization. And then actually in the last 20 to 25 years, a lot of these decision makers for these private entities, presidents, CEOs, CFOs, they were board of directors for a lot of the different towns, regions, municipalities. And they actually came to us about 25 years ago when they're sitting on the board for their city saying, hey, Enterprise, we love what you're doing with our private company. How can you help us kind of manage our government fleet like you're doing with our private fleets? So we actually got into the government space about 25 years ago, and it's actually the fastest growing division within Enterprise Fleet Management. Primarily, we're doing everything that you're doing today for ourselves. Within Enterprise, we manage 2.3 million vehicles for ourselves, burning fuel day in and day out. We buy and sell about 1 million vehicles every given year. So long story short, we just provide the infrastructure, resources, and technology of a company that owns 2 million vehicles to help folks like the Township of Springwater that has, 30 to 50 vehicles in their fleet, achieve financial and operational savings. In the last, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how we got to the stage and where we're at today. In the last, call it 12 months, we just recently received an award through LAS and Sourcewell. It's a cooperative group buying program here in Ontario that allows us contractually and from a due diligence procurement standpoint, work with municipalities in Ontario to help them manage their fleets. In the last few months, we've seen a massive uptick in the amount of municipalities that are coming on board with our program, just due to the sheer savings that we're providing them. Municipalities next door to Springwater, like Clearview, like the Township of Meaford, the town of Lincoln. We're working with a lot of municipalities that are going to council and have been approved. We just haven't had them activated yet here in Ontario, all utilizing the LAS and Sourcewell cooperative group buying program that allows us to work with you on an ongoing basis to manage your vehicles. So the whole premise of our program, and this is what we do for ourselves day in and day out, because as you know, if we have 2 million vehicles, anything that we do impacts our bottom line, right? So we look at everything from a total cost of ownership standpoint, and we try and find the point when it makes sense to get out of a vehicle. And it'll be very different for a car, call it a Kia Soul, versus a 1-ton work truck, versus an F550 with $40,000 worth of aftermarket on the back. They're very different. So today, like most municipalities, you're going to tender, you're putting out an RFP for a particular type of truck. And after you pinpoint whether it's the cheapest price or whatever vehicle fits your parameters, you're stroking a check and you're buying a vehicle cash today. And then after 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 years, looking at that orange line, the depreciation line, it's flagged for replacement. It's 10 years old. It's got 240,000 kilometers on it or whatever, and you dispose of it. You go back out to the tender and you start the process all over again. As you know, with a brand new vehicle, fuel and maintenance, it's the cheapest it could be, right? Fuel, it's a brand new engine. Maintenance, it's a filter and an oil change. Through time, whether you start to see on your fleet vehicles or your personal vehicles like mine, your maintenance will start to increase through time. So we just find the point for our fleets and for our partners' fleets where all three of those costs intersect. And that's that circle, that's that sweet spot that we advise our partners to get out of a vehicle for two reasons. From a hard dollar perspective, it's actually the cheapest it could be to operate that vehicle, getting out at that particular point in time. And you minimize all of the volatility that could potentially happen with something major happening to that vehicle in the later lifestyle stages of that vehicle, where it could be down a lot longer than it necessarily should. And this is the type of hard analytics that we do for ourselves to really reduce your overall costs. So once we pinpoint, and it'll be different for a half-ton truck versus a service body or a car for potentially bylaw or SUVs, what we do is we factory order these vehicles straight through the manufacturer. So we spec these vehicles exactly what the town of Springwater needs for each of your different vehicle class segments. So for your half tons, you need particular aftermarket. For some of your bylaw sedans, some of your heavier duty, service trucks, and your service body dump bodies, we spec these vehicles exactly what you're looking for. We facilitate and handle a lot of the decaling, the putting in the shelving. We take a lot of this stuff off of our partners' hands, and at the end of the day, deliver a vehicle turnkey, ready to work. And we do a very rigorous due diligence process, just because of the 2 million vehicles that we own and operate ourselves, and the analytics that we put into really determining what is the best vehicle. And we really look at everything from a total cost of ownership standpoint. And essentially what we do is we know that the acquisition price, if you can see my screen, the acquisition price is important, right? We want to get the best buy on the front end. But as we know, our money's green and it's going to be spent wherever it's going to be spent. And those are things like depreciation, fuel, maintenance. So all we do is we take all of your known costs that we know is going to happen for each particular vehicle, and we just project out from a cents per kilometer basis what is actually the right vehicle that produces the lowest total cost to operate. And the one thing I just want to pinpoint, if you see these two vehicles on the left-hand side of the screen, let me just annotate here. You've got the Chevrolet Silverado and the Ford F-150. The acquisition price of the Chev is $29,900. The Ford is $34,500, yet they both come out at 37 cents a kilometer. So we just do a real rigorous analysis to determine what is the right tool for the job. And that's the vehicle that we would recommend our partners to get into. At the end of the day, these are your vehicles. If you want to go Ford through and through, or you want to go GM through and through, you let us know what vehicle you want to go with, and we go to work for you. You don't have to take whatever vehicle we recommend. We just make that recommendation that potentially may provide the most amount of savings overall. Does that make sense so far? And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me, but do you have any questions or?
I think we'll continue with the presentation and we'll have some questions at the end.
Awesome, that works. So if we pick the right vehicle, the next step is, well, how do you pay for it? And today, like most municipalities, there's three ways that you could, acquire a vehicle. Let's just say this is a $30,000 pickup truck. You could either pay cash, like what most municipalities are doing today. You're locking $30,000 all up in years one. You could essentially finance that vehicle. Basically, you spread $6,000 over 5 years and pay that vehicle off over a 5-year time frame. Or you can do what, call it 99% of our government partners do, and they do what's called a market finance or an open-ended lease. And it's essentially a finance down to a residual. And the reason why all of our municipal partners choose option 3 is because it allows you to do more with less with the capital that you're allotted for light duty vehicle replacements. And what I mean by that is, if we know that we're going to get out of a vehicle at that circle, right? That's that sweet spot. And let's just say after 5 years, we're going to sell that vehicle for, call it $35,000 on the back end. Well, basically what we'll do is we'll only finance a portion of that vehicle, knowing that at X time frame, you're going to sell that vehicle for more than you owe. And it really allows you to spread your money over more vehicles to get you to that circle sweet spot faster. So today, if you had a $60,000 budget, how many vehicles could you acquire? Today, you'd only be able to acquire 2 vehicles. because you're paying 30 grand cash for each truck. If you were to finance those, you could get 10. And if we know it would take, say, 13 to get to that sweet spot, with a $60,000 budget, you're actually able to get those 13 replacements in and be at that optimum hold that's actually the lowest total cost to operate. So at the end of the day, these are your vehicles. What's great about a market value finance, I hope I didn't confuse you with your typical dealership lease that most people think about. These are your trucks. There's no wear and tear provisions. There's no damage restrictions. It's not like you're allotted only 15,000 kilometers, and if it comes back with more, you pay an excess charge like you typically see. These are your vehicles. And at the end, we sell it. Whatever equity that we get on the back end would be attributed back to the Township of Springwater. Like most leases that you see, when you return that vehicle, you wash your hands clean, the dealership sells it, they retain the equity. This equity goes straight to the township. So all the benefits, you have the flexibility of ownership, but all that equity goes back to the township at the end. So we're really a full service program that helps not only buy and sell vehicles, but manage everything in between your maintenance, and really help provide the information that your folks can really be in control of, having all the information at their fingertips to help make the right decisions in terms of when it makes sense to get out of vehicles. And the first thing is maintenance, right? We talked about kind of buying and selling, maintenance in between. Because we have about 2.3 million vehicles in our fleet, at any given point in time, let's just say we're talking about the backbone of your work fleet, right? Your half-ton pickup trucks. At any given point in time, Enterprise has about 125,000 half-ton pickup trucks going your mileage pattern of 15 to 20,000 kilometers a year. We know exactly how much it costs to operate these vehicles. So essentially what we can do is we can take all the costs that we know you're going to need for these vehicles, and we can actually flatline it over the term of that vehicle and build it into your payment. And that's that full maintenance that you're looking at on the top right. Essentially what that is that's an all-in fixed inflation-proof program that allows you to go to any maintenance shop Canada-wide, and all the maintenance is taken care of. So you don't have any peaks and valleys of brakes and tires in one year, or a major repair happening in another year. It basically just takes your costs, it flatlines it. And from an accounting and budgeting standpoint, it's great because you know exactly how much it's going to cost to maintain this vehicle. If there's an expense that is more expensive than what your monthly cost would be, we foot the bill. And the reason why we're able to do that is because we have 275 certified ASE master mechanics. ASE essentially means Automotive Service Excellence. It's the highest certification in the automotive industry. They used to be mechanics under the hoods cranking gears. Now they're answering phone calls for all of our customers. So essentially what it is because we're tracking all the maintenance for ourselves and we know exactly when items are required, we help, as part of our service, provide that to our partners. And we're saving our partners, a lot of money year over year over year in terms of just maintenance expenses alone. And at the end of that vehicle's life, we've got 700 remarketing professionals whose only job is to sell vehicles. They don't know if it's an Enterprise vehicle or a Township of Springwater vehicle, but we're a very competitive company, and they get matrixed against each other based on how fast they sell that vehicle for and for how much money. And because we sell about 75,000 vehicles in Ontario alone each year, and all we do is sell vehicles, we're pretty good at it. In 2020, globally, we sold just over 1 million units, and we're actually beating the Canadian Black Book by about 9%. We're over the index just because we have about 19,000 unique buyers that come to Enterprise to buy these vehicles from us. So we sell direct to dealer, wholesale. We provide great returns and bring this back into your pocket. And at the end of the day, we gather all of the information in terms of every line itemized expense that actually occurs across your fleet. And it's all housed in our dashboard. So you have an entire dedicated account management team that works with your folks at Springwater, reviews your fleet, your KPIs on a quarterly and annually basis to help make recommendations that's aimed to drive down your costs. How can we create greater efficiencies year over year and put you in a better spot where essentially we can allow you to be in essentially a newer vehicle for a lot less than what you're currently spending today. And we were really excited to provide a high level concept of what this would look like. I reached out to Jeff Schmidt a little bit ago and explained to him kind of who I am, what we do, who we're working with, next door to you. And he thought this was a really good concept. And I mean, we're saving other folks hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year over a 10-year analysis. I mean, this is a large chunk of change. And he thought this was a really cool concept that he wanted to get in front of mayor, deputy mayor, councilors to see what your thoughts are in putting together, a recommendation and what an actual, hard dollar savings would look like by buying and selling and transitioning over to the enterprise fleet management platform. And we really only discussed, the items in red today, but we're doing everything at a large scale. And I am very confident that this is a massive financial win for you. It's going to relieve some of the administrative burden that you're going to have managing your fleet. I don't know if you've seen what's going on in the automotive industry, but it's very challenging right now. There's a lot of challenges with semiconductors, microchips, and having an expert in the automotive industry to sit at the table with you to help make recommendations to kind of navigate these waters together, I think is a really big win. And I just wanted to open up the table to answer any questions you all may have. And I really appreciate your time in listening to Camille and I this evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. On your slide 8, I believe it is, operating expenses, maintenance, you had maintenance management, bridge program for currently owned vehicle, fleet vehicles. How do you transition into your program?
Yep, that's great. Great question. So we essentially, what we do is we will look at all of the vehicles that are past that circle, call it that sweet spot, right? And we'll flag anything that technically is costing you more money than it should. And essentially what we want to do is we obviously want to stay in line with what your capital budget is for this year. We obviously wouldn't spend a penny more than what would be allotted for light duty vehicle replacements. So we would flag anything right off the hop that say 10 years old or 160,000 kilometers because it's a 10-year-old vehicle. And from a safety and productivity standpoint, we should probably get to those vehicles first. So after we determine the vehicles and the quantity that makes sense to get on our program, we would, like I mentioned, factory order those vehicles. They would land, and that bridge program that you're talking about, if you've got, call it 40 vehicles in your fleet, and we're going to start with say 15, we know there's still 25, right, that we haven't cycled. That bridge program is essentially a bill back program where you have access to those 275 ASC certified master mechanics that I talked about. When you go into a shop for maintenance, any repair or phone call, instead of it coming to your folks, would come to our team at Enterprise, these master mechanics, and essentially they would negotiate the repairs for what's needed on that particular vehicle. And it's a bill back solution until those vehicles are transferred onto, it's a new vehicle coming in, and that would be on the flat fixed monthly rate.
Okay, now this fleet management, it refers to cars, trucks. As you get into public works and into heavy equipment, where's your cutoff with what you deal with?
We do everything up to a 35,000 pound GVWR rating. So that's a class 7 vehicle is what we take care of. So if you've got F550, you got utility bodies, 30, 40 grand worth of aftermarket on the back, dumps. We take care of stake trucks. We take care of all that for you as well. Cubes.
Okay. Council, go ahead with any questions, comments, please. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just great presentation.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a couple of things. The program that you showed, so the dashboard that you showed, that program, is that something that our township staff would have access to ongoing? And is there a cost to the township for providing these metrics to us? I want to figure out where we're going to pay for all the great service.
Yep, that's a great question. This dashboard is included in the services that we provide. What's great about this dashboard is it really allows multiple departments who may be in charge of only a portion of the fleet to only have access to their particular vehicles. So whether it's public works or bylaw, if there's 8 or 10 or whatever number that is, and they only want to have access to manage those 8, we can do that independently. Fire, they want to manage their vehicles, we can do fire. If say Scott is overseeing the entire fleet, and he has access to all 50, we can have different administrators that have different access to different types of levels within the program. And this is a login that we would set up your teams, whoever you deem to see fit to, have access to this information, and set them up on the dashboard. And it would track everything from fuel spend to maintenance spend to odometers and mileage trends and recall information. We've invested, it was a little over $100 million in 2016 into this technology that is live fed, that really allows our municipalities to be on the pulse of their fleet at a click of a button and help download everything, real time for everything that's happening across each individual vehicle or gross in whole spend as well.
Yeah.
With that being said, to your second question, how we make our money, we're very transparent. We make our money in 3 ways. And this is all in line with the RFP that we won from government pricing. We've got a small markup with on the acquisition price of a vehicle, which is in line with the LAS RFP Sourcewell, which we won. So it's all government pricing still. We've got a monthly management fee. That's for us to provide these services and have an account manager that meets with your team quarterly. And at the end, when we pick up a vehicle, if we're going to sell it and put a check back to you, there's a $495 fee. And essentially that allows our team to pick up the vehicle, remove the decals, clean it, put it for sale, and then put money back in your pocket. Those are the 3 ways we make our money.
Councillor, to add on to Chris's answer there, the pricing is all predetermined through the Sourcewell LAS contract, and we're happy to share that with you. That's obviously public information. But beyond that, more to your question of where else is there going to be? Is there fees? Is there hidden charges? Is there additional access? There is not. It is all inclusive within that pricing structure, and all of that is outlined in the LAS agreement. The information that you're going to have on the website is live information. I compare it sort of to having a financial advisor, right? You're going to have an account manager that's going to meet with you typically between 2 and 4 times per year to talk about what's happening in your fleet, what's happening in the market, and where is your areas of opportunity to capitalize on that. But any of that information is always going to be available to you on the website. You can log in and see specific details to what's going on in the fleet.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Cabral, wouldn't there be an effective rate of interest that would be built into the open-ended lease as well?
Correct. Yes, there is.
So that's a source of revenue to you.
No, because we borrow our funds as well. So based on our borrowing rate, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. It's essentially a wash. We don't make money off of our interest because we borrow those funds.
Okay. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Appreciate that. I will admit, I felt like I was in the local dealership being asked if I wanted to lease a car or buy a car. I know that it sure looks nice on paper and it sounds wonderful, but I do have some questions. I'm a bit of a skeptic. You might as well say I'm from Missouri. That's the show me state. And I'm not a big proponent of leasing. And just based on what you've said, part of my concern is the fact that you really don't care what shape you get the vehicles back in. And part of the reason why you might not care is because you're going to sell it for whatever you can get. That's the equity that the township's going to get back in their pocket. Whereas when we own our own vehicles, when we get to that sweet spot, we're in a position then, if the truck is in good shape, to actually sell it, and we can put that money back into our own reserve. So I do have some concerns about that particular concept of, don't worry about the vehicle, you'll get back what it's worth at the end. Well, if it's not worth very much because it's been beaten up, that's what we're getting back out of it. How long, I have several questions, but maybe I'll break them up into a couple of smaller parts, and that'll give an opportunity for maybe some of the other counselors also to jump in. But you did indicated that you've been running this program for a number of years. Can you just quickly tell me how many years it was, and whether it's national in scope in Canada or national in scope across North America, because you've thrown a lot of numbers about employees and all this other stuff, the numbers of cars you want to buy. I'm just interested in the Canadian experience, not the national experience.
Christopher?
Yeah.
If you could tell me when it started.
So we just recently won this award through LAS about a year ago for Ontario specifically.
Okay,
So-
but have you not been providing this service to other municipalities? You didn't need to win an award from LAS to provide this service to other municipalities in the province of Ontario. You're using LAS's contract in order to promote it somewhat, from what I can see. Is that the case? There are no other municipalities other than since you won the contract that have jumped on board?
Essentially from if you want to call it a vendor of record type contract, we've been needing LAS and Sourcewell's cooperative group buying program to allow us contractually to work with municipalities here in Ontario.
I don't see the relevance if Springwater Township wanted to reach out to you as an entity all unto itself. It would be as if you were dealing with any other private fleet, I would think, but we'll leave that. The question I was going to ask you, if you'd said they'd been in existence for maybe 5 or 10 years, was how many of your clients changed their mind down the road and opted to do it differently? The mayor did allude to the heavy vehicles, and you came back with something that I really can't say that all of us as counselors would understand when we're talking about the size of truck that you could do. Like, I know what a 5500 is. However, I do know that we've got dump trucks, tandem axle dump trucks that are, they're 52,000 just on the front end. So you would not be talking about anything like that. You'd be talking about a 5-ton, probably in around that neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So that would be like Leon's moving van would be the biggest vehicle you guys would be providing to us.
Yeah, and Counselor, maybe I can shed a little bit of light on that. In terms of the vehicles, we do work with medium duty type vehicles. To be honest, more than anything, we do it because our customers ask for it. The bread and butter of this program is going to be the light duty fleet,
Yep.
1 ton and down type of vehicles, but we will go up to typically like an F650, F750
Right,
size of vehicle.
Right, and to be honest, I don't think we have anything larger than a 3500 or a 1-ton dually that would fit that. I don't think we have one larger than that. The trucks that are larger than that are these real heavy duty machines. So when you're talking about the fleet management aspect, and a quarter of our vehicles are these heavy duty dump trucks, I have to ask myself, if we sign up for it, you're only going to provide a 75% service on the management fleet end of things. So I have to keep that in mind. I used the term at the end of the day a couple of times too. So for me, I'm more interested in what I can do to make sure that the taxpayers get their fair share at the end of the day too. So when I do think about the equity aspect, you covered that. You talked about how many vehicles we can buy. And if we were to lease them, we would be able to buy $60,000. Your example was we could buy 2 today. We could lease, finance to purchase over the course of X number of years, 10. But if we did it through you folks, we'd have 13. But then we run into that little thing at the end of the 5 years where even if we finance them for 5 years, at the end of that 5 years, some of the trucks are in pretty darn good shape. We can redeploy them too, but we'd own all 10 of those trucks. Whereas your vehicles, if we were to go with your program, I don't see it necessarily being to our benefit to be parting with vehicles too. One other thing I'd like to make mention of is we do have new asset management software, and I'm quite certain there's a lot of fleet management software out there too that may provide us a lot of insight into our own vehicles as well. And we have a fleet manager that we just put into a position. So I just see these as mitigating circumstances, just kind of jumping both feet into what you're offering us, I guess. And we're not the city of Toronto either. I mean, they're probably dealing in thousands of vehicles each year, and I would think that we might buy 3 or 4 vehicles a year. So, and the other thing too, and I have to bring this up, is from the local standpoint, our vehicles are sourced out locally from our dealers, spec'd out to our specifications. And that kind of cuts that aspect out of the loop too. And I have to keep that in mind, that we do want to deal locally when we can as well. So those are just some of my comments. I like the presentation, but it does leave me with quite a number of questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you work with the Director of Finance to be able to come in with a model that I'm sure you have, to do a sort of a pro forma based on our existing fleet and age? Can you take a quick inventory of what we have, plug it in, and do some pro forma calculations of what might potentially be saved over a period of time, 5, 10 years, making some assumptions?
That's really the type of analysis that we do. It's in depth, it's comprehensive. And our goal is to show through time, by buying and selling at the right time frame over 10 years, what these savings do look like.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm saying upfront, when we want a further report from staff looking at the possibilities of this, we need to understand a pretty accurate cost benefit analysis. So would you be able to come in upfront before any commitment as part of that report and just work with our asset managers, see our current inventory, make some assumptions, do some projections, and that would be incorporated in a report to council that would then give us some numbers to look at, in addition to the subjective side of this that Councillor Cabral was just referring to?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we can have something like that ready probably within a week's time.
Okay, CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so just to clarify, so there has been work done with Chris and his staff on that information that you're seeking. And staff's position was at this stage that we didn't want to bring that information to council without having this presentation provided to you at a higher level as to what the program can offer. So subject to council's discussion tonight and interest, that would be the next stage, is really to have Chris and his team come back and provide that level of detail that's more specific to Springwater, to provide what the actual incentive could be to the township. So again, one of the reasons why we're bringing this forward is, again, we are always looking at efficiencies, and I realize to Councillor Cabral's point, it doesn't include all of our fleet, but it does provide for a good portion of our fleet. And it would assist us on our asset management journey as we move forward. So these are the things that we're typically trying to take a look at and trying to move the corporation forward. So, but again, the intent tonight was to kind of give Chris and his team the opportunity to present the program at a very high level, and then subject to council's discussion tonight, if there's interest, then we would be scheduling another meeting in the near future to come back to council with more specifics as it relates to a program for Springwater. So
Thank you, Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question I have. I think it's page 7, and it gives options 1, 2, and 3, where it talks about $60,000 annual budget. We get 13 vehicles and we keep them for 5 years, but that doesn't mean a one-time fee, the way I understand it, of 60,000. That's $60,000 we pay in 5 years. So it'd be 60,000 times 5 years, not one $60,000 expenditure to get 13 vehicles for 5 years, correct?
So yeah, so that would be if you have a $60,000 budget each year you would acquire 2 vehicles and spend $60,000. So each year you would be able to get 13 vehicles each year for that same $60,000. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think it answered it.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, Councillor Hannah kind of twigged my thoughts on this, but I think part of the process here too with this package is all of this other stuff that is going to be attached to it. So I would hazard to guess, and either Chris or Camille can correct me if I'm wrong, that if we were using this $60,000 figure, that wouldn't be the $60,000 figure that would be applicable. That would simply be the $60,000 figure for the vehicles as property themselves, not taking into consideration all of the other fleet management, the maintenance, all this other stuff. And I have to point out that we did recently hire an additional mechanic to do our in-house fleet management and oil changes. That's just something else that we have to take into consideration when we go forward. But would I be correct in assuming that the 60,000 K that we're discussing with respect to the vehicles themselves would not be the only amount applicable in any given year?
Chris?
That was just a proof of concept to illustrate how to deploy capital. Your capital budget would be whatever your budget is, and that price would include the interest, the management fee, and the monthly costs associated with each vehicle's expense.
Yes, Councillor, we will provide an all-in figure.
Okay, Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, I just want to mention, I think you mentioned it for me, and so did CAO Schmidt, that I'd like to see more information on this to kind of really scope down and take a closer look at this. I thank them for coming and putting the presentation on, but I have questions and concerns, and I think maybe a little more depth will maybe be able to answer that. So that's my sense.
Okay. Can I ask, before you go to Councillor Ma, what's your competition in this field for municipalities? Who else does this?
We've so LES has gone essentially to tender and has done a due diligence process for all associated entities to bid on this type of work for municipal contracts in Ontario, and Enterprise was awarded that contract. So we are the rightful entity to work with municipalities here in Ontario. If that answers your question, Mayor, sorry.
Okay, Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That was the same question I was going to ask. I was just going to see if there's any other township or municipalities that were part of this program. That answered that. Second, if we went with this program, would this make it more efficient on the township staff, where fleet management would look after all the vehicles and less staff time spent on it?
Correct. Yes, we would help facilitate. So you wouldn't have to go to tender to go to RFP for an acquisition of a vehicle. We would help facilitate a lot of those that you're doing currently in-house today. And again, all of those costs are included into our fees in the analysis that we put together, that would relieve some of the administrative burden in managing this, that would take that off your plate for sure.
How is that monthly management fee determined? What sort of range is it?
It's 0.10% of the invoice price of the vehicle monthly.
Okay,
So for a $30,000 vehicle, you'd be $30 a month. And again, when we do this analysis, all of these costs are built in to show you what the savings would look like, including our fees to work and manage this for you as well.
Right. Councillor Cabral? No, you're muted. There.
I'm going to have to assume that when you said $30, that's $30 per vehicle, $360 per year per vehicle. I think.
Yes.
With respect to the LAS agreement, they obviously aren't, did they buy any vehicles? Are you managing anything for them? That's question one. And I guess question two refers back to the agreement from this RFP that they put out. You said that that was available to us. If it is, I personally would love to review it because it would certainly give me more insight into what they were seeking and what you folks offered to provide them. Because, and CAO Schmidt, maybe you can correct me on this, but LAS is a group that we belong to. I think some type of government big bulk buying kind of thing. But does that mean that every municipality belongs to them? Because I don't know what their scope is, but that's what I see, the more of an administrative body than anything else. So just the two things, if the agreement's available that you guys went in with, if it's, I would like to see it so that at least I can have more background information on it, because when we move forward with this, I want to be as well informed as I can be. And,
Chris, any response? Then I'll go to CAO Schmidt.
perfect.
Sorry, Councilor Cabral, to your question on LAS's fleet, I don't actually know if LAS has a fleet of vehicles. I'm not sure if they even have vehicles for us to manage.
I'll hop in there. They don't have a qualified fleet of vehicles. They're the administrative procurement body that issues contracts like this and takes care of the RFPs. They don't have buildings or facilities that they maintain with their vehicles. So to your first question, they don't have vehicles. The second is absolutely, we can send over the contract and the RFP that it was awarded on.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. That's been a very good presentation and discussion. We look forward to continued information with respect to this. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation, please? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Moore, that the presentation from Enterprise Fleet Management regarding their fleet management proposal be received. All those in favor? That is carried. So thank you again, gentlemen. And a mover and seconder for the confirmatory bylaw.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Councillor Maude Chapman, Councillor Ritchie, that the bylaw 2021-036 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the special meeting held on April 7, 2021, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? It's carried. And a mover and seconder to adjourn, please. Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 5:48 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on April 7, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. We shall see you again shortly.
Perfect. See you later. Bye-bye.